told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Got a buildup of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby I have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what.
Hey, cool gamer. Hey, Stick. How you guys today? Whew, I can't believe it's almost Christmas. Almost Christmas already. Oops, not that. Sorry, I need to, I've been running all over the place. I'm so busy. I gotta get rid of some of these videos on my phone. My phone is completely clogged up. Oh yeah, that's a lot. Oh my. Okay. Let's get rid of that. Definitely delete all that. I think all that. All right. You still want to do that book, right, Autistic? I'm assuming yes. I still do. So I was going to finish this and then continue on with ours, like every Wednesday at 7. Or even every, well, I wouldn't say every night, 'cause you're a mod for like everyone. There's someone here, Leland. There's someone here. I swear I can hear a car.
I know there's somebody outside. Nobody's here.
Oh my God, wait till my, wow, wait till my video tomorrow. Hey, T King. Just all this crap going on with Katie. Oh my God, what a fucking joke. Like, I'm telling you. She's so stupid. So she's telling everyone that she's been hacked, right? Well, I never believe a word she says. I never have, and I never will, because every single time it comes out that she's a full-blown liar, right? This happened again last year when she was in the Toddy Westbrook lawsuit. All of a sudden, her Instagram was hacked. Remember that? And then it was memorialized for her. No, it wasn't. Like, she did it to herself. Like, my God. And now she's pulling this crap. Well, she says that she doesn't have access to her Facebook. She can't post anything. She can't block people. She can't delete comments. She has no access, right? That's funny because I went over there to prove a freaking point, and sure enough, my comments got deleted, another person's got deleted, my videos I posted got deleted, and then my claim against her got deleted. So that'll be in tomorrow's video. She is oh, not only that, she's saying the person that doxed her is like the king of India. She's so freaking stupid. Oh my God. Like, we're on to her ploys here. Everybody is. I'm so sick and tired of the lies and bullshit. Like, with someone like her, just her in general, when she does this shit, she should be the one to get in trouble. She needs to get in trouble for this because this reoccurring bullshit is enough already. Like, enough. I'm so sick and tired of her shit. I'll keep posting. Just prove point. I have all the screenshots, but I will show you guys tomorrow. It's ridiculous. All right, I'm gonna get reading. Also, tonight I'm gonna be on Down the Rabbit Hole's channel, Down the Rabbit Hole Bedtime's channel. Shit, I need to put the. Oh my god, I'm losing it. Where the hell did I put the oh, you know what? I'll worry about it after. Oh wait, there it is. Okay. So I'm gonna put the post in my comments on my YouTube because that way you guys can join the link. So it's gonna be me, her, and my friend Nunyan. I gotta actually quickly message Nunyan and make sure she wants to still do this. All right, Rabbit's channel. I'll put the link in here as well so you guys can come over and watch. It's supposed to be fun. We're just gonna kind of discuss. Okay, it says Friendsgiving with Katie Joy, chat, Nikki Supernatural Crime, and Nun. All right. I'm just gonna post it. Sorry, 1 second. I should have done this before. I haven't been able to even sit down for a minute. There. All right, all done. Sorry about that. We are almost done this book. Wow. This book is probably a bit, besides like the Black Dahlia and the other one I need to finish as well, Jack the Ripper. I think this one and the Black Dahlia are probably my two favorite books I've read so far. Well, no, because that Alien one was pretty good too. But for facts that I didn't know, and I don't know, I just seem much more educated after reading it because a lot of these things I did not know, and it's just mind-boggling. All right, My Adversary. Back in 1999, Bugliosi had told me, if there's something about my handling of the case, anything at all that you had a question about, I would appreciate if you would call me to get my view on it. I'd promised to hear him out, imagining I'd circle back in another few months. Now, 7 years had passed, and I had so many questions that it took me weeks of preparation just to remember all of them. Wow, that's pretty bad. If I was reluctant to pick up the phone, it was because I was about to engage with a man who went to criminal lengths to protect his reputation. This is now factual because he's found all this guy, the one who wrote this, Tom Riley, he's found all the proof now. I've already mentioned Mary Newsblender, the reporter who told me that Bugliosi was terribly dangerous. He'd sent an emissary warning that he knew where kids went to school and implied that it would be very easy to plant narcotics in their lockers. Wow. And I knew that Bugliosi had been indicated for perjury as a result of his prosecuting the murders, as mentioned earlier. He'd leaked information about Manson's hit list to a reporter and had threatened professionalism consequences for his co-prosecutors if they told anyone. You know, it's too bad that Bugliosi is passed on because I would have liked to see him be prosecuted for all these crimes because what he did in this case is just, he completely ruined it. I mean, by this book, they should all be let out of jail just because of what this idiot did, even though they committed the murders. It should be a retrial or just let them go. Like, this is crazy. Those turned out to be two of the milder incidents in his quest for self-preservation. In 1968, Bugliosi fell into a scandal kept under wraps by the DA's office until 1972 when he was running for district attorney of Los Angeles. He lost the election. He'd stalked and terrorized someone he was convinced had carried on an affair with his wife and fathered his firstborn child, Vincent Jr. As cliched as it sounds, Bugliosi suspected his milkman, Herbert Weisel, who was married with two children. Okay, I did not know that. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, like, I've heard it even when I was younger. My mom say it or my aunts or whatever and be like, "Yeah, the baby with the milkman, milkman's your dad." Just being stupid. Um, it's oh my god. So the milkman had left his job in 1965, 8 months before Vincent Jr. was born. Bugliosi was sure that Weisel had quit because of his transgression. The evidence must have been in Weisel's personnel file at the dairy. He made anonymous phone calls to Weisel's wife and then to Weisel himself, demanding him to release the files. The couple began to notice strange cars circling their block after dark. They changed their phone number, which was already unlisted. 2 days later, they got a typed letter postmarked from LA. You shouldn't have changed your phone number, it said. That wasn't nice. This guy is crazy, this prosecutor Bugliosi. Eventually, Bugliosi's wife, Gail, approached the Weisels, revealing her identity in the hopes that she could arrange a Diente. I'm not sure what that means. The Weisels told her that her husband should be getting psychiatric help. You want to come up, Nun Nun? I didn't know if you're good or not. This is just, oh, I'm sorry. This was hilarious. The part about the milkman. As cliche as it sounds, he thought it was the milkman. She told us that she tried many times, but that he wouldn't do it. They later testified in a civil deposition. She'd taken paternity and lie detector tests to prove the child was his, but he still harbored doubts. I know he's sick, he said. He's got a mental problem. The couple became so frightened that they stopped allowing their children to take the bus to school. They had a lawyer, and after a mediation, Bugliosi agreed to stop harassing them to pay them $100 for their silence. $100? That's it? I would have, heck no, I would have asked for a heck of a lot more than that. Oh, they refused the money. In 72, with Bugliosi on the ballot, they decided it was either their civic duty to go public. Their tormentor aspired to the most powerful law enforcement job in the city. They told the papers of his year-long harassment and intimidation campaign. Enlisting his well-documented talent for fabrication, Bugliosi retaliated, telling the press that Weisel had stolen money from his kitchen table 7 years earlier. Weisel sued him for slander and defamation. Okay, you rest up then, girl. I sent you the link so that we can go live on Rabbits later at 9:30. So Weisel sued him for slander and defamation. It wasn't a tough case to win. In depositions, Bugliosi and his wife swore they'd only been worried about the alleged robbery of their home. The Weisels proved otherwise, bringing in witnesses who exposed the Bugliosis as perjurers. Soon it came out that Bugliosi had twice used an investigator in the DA's office, his office, to get confidential information about Weisel, claiming he was a material witness in a murder case. Fearing the disclosure would cost him his job, Bugliosi settled out of court, paying the Weisels $12,500. He paid in cash on one condition. On the condition, Bugliosi settled out of court, paying the Weisels $12,500. He paid in cash on the condition that they sign a confidentiality agreement and turn over the deposition tapes. I hope they didn't. Okay, good. No sooner was the milkman imbroglio resolved that Bugliosi fell into another fiasco, again abusing his connection to the criminal justice system to straighten it out. His mistress, Virginia Cardwell, the single mother of a 5-year-old, told him she was pregnant. So he's banging the milkman after all. Ah, got it. Oh my gosh. It was his. With visions of public office still dancing around in his mind and helter-skelter on the eve of publication, he ordered Cardwell, a Catholic, to get an abortion. I hope she didn't. She refused, but after Bugliosi threatened her and gave her money for the procedure, she lied and said she had done it. He wasn't about to take her word for it. He got her doctor's name, calls him, and learned that she'd never been to see him, after which he headed to her apartment and beat her so savagely that she suffered a miscarriage. Holy fuck. I better read that he's been in prison and died in there. Oh my God. Sorry, trigger warning, guys. He choked her, struck her in the face several times with his fists, threw her onto the floor, pulled her up by her hair, and threatened to kill her if she had the baby, saying she wouldn't leave the apartment alive if she lied to him. I will break every bone in your body. This will ruin my career. Bruised and battered, Cardwell gathered herself and went to the Santa Monica Police Department, where she filed a criminal complaint. The cops photographed her bruises and then evidently did nothing. Nothing. Not one day in jail, let alone. Oh my God, this is, yeah, you're right. This was gonna upset me. I wonder if this woman's still alive. Like, I want to reach out and give her a hug. Like, this is insane. That evening, an eagle-eyed reporter reported the incident on the police blotter and wrote about it in the next day's paper. Bugliosi returned to the Cardwell's apartment that morning, this time with his secretary. Oh my God, the pair held her hostage for 4 hours until she agreed to tell the police she'd filed a false complaint in the previous day. Holy shit. Bugliosi assured her he'd use his contacts in the DA's office to make sure she was never brought to trial for the false report. He and his secretary used Caldwell's typewriter to forge a backdated bill for legal services, telling her how to show it to the police. He listened in on extension as she called to turn herself in. The dispatcher said they'd send a patrol car to get her. He vigorously shook his head, and Cardwell told the dispatcher she'd be fine getting in on her own. The dispatcher sent a car anyway. One of the detectives who's seen Caldwell that day, Michael Landis, told me Bugliosi and a couple of his associates answered the door and tried to discourage us from talking to her. Oh my God. And she was pretty well banged up. She claimed that the bruises were from an accident. Her son had hit her in the face with a baseball bat. She only blamed Bugliosi because she was angry that he'd overcharged her for legal advice concerning her divorce. This outrageous charge, even though false, can be extremely harmful, Bugliosi told the police. Oh. Cardwell's brother persuaded her to file a lawsuit against Bugliosi. Bugliosi's story fell apart after the suit was even filed, and he settled with Cardwell in exchange for confidentiality, ensuring he hoped that his lies to the police, fabrication of evidence, and obstruction of justice would never see the light of day. He was wrong. Good. The Virginia Cardwell story hit papers in 1974 when his primary opponent in the California State Attorney General's race, William Norris, caught wind of it. Bugliosi lost that election too. Because of his clout in the DA's office, he was never prosecuted for assaulting Caldwell. Landis, the detective, called him a whiny, sniveling little bastard, saying, "I wanted to prosecute that son of a bitch." All of which is to say that I approached Bugliosi with extreme caution. Wow. And at first, he refused to grant me another interview. In our intervening years, he explained he'd heard from 2 unnamed sources that I'd done terrible things in my private life. He refused to say what these things were. I knew I'd done nothing wrong. I told him to go ahead and expose whatever it is he had on me. It would never hold up in scrutiny. I added that I added that I'd amassed a lot of documents, including some in his own hand that raised questions about the integrity of the prosecution. But he was adamant, no interview. Furthermore, if my book defamed or libeled him, he would hold me liable to the greatest degree of the law. You don't want to be working for me the rest of your life, he said. I think you know what I mean. And he hung up. What the fuck does that mean? And then 10 minutes later, Bugliosi called back. He wanted to repeat the same conversation we just had to pretend like we were having it for the first time. His wife, Gail, would be listening in on another extension as a witness, so I wouldn't represent what he said. What the this is fucked up. You want us to repeat the conversation word for word, like it hadn't happened already, I asked. Yes, he said. Or, the essence of the conversation. It was a ridiculous exercise. I agreed anyway. I wanted to keep out lines of communication, our lines of communication open, and I had a morbid desire to see how it played out. I told him I'd only do it if I could tape the call, so I have a witness too. He agreed. Hey, SD. Listening back to it now, I'm amazed. We really did it. We had the same talk again, with occasional corrections. No, Vince, you said you'd sue me for $1 million, not millions of dollars. Every few minutes, Bugliosi would make sure that Gail was still listening. Yes, she'd sigh, I'm here. As for the papers I had, he told me documents may be accurate, but it doesn't make the document itself truthful. How does that make sense? If they're accurate, then how does it not make it truthful? And even if he wanted to sit down with me, which he didn't, because the terrible things he'd done, the author did, he couldn't because he was absolutely swamped. He didn't have time to go to a Super Bowl party that some prominent people had invited him to. I kind of doubt that under any circumstances I'd be willing to give you an interview, Bugliosi said. But if you send me a letter specifying everything you want to talk about or the essence of what you want to talk about, there's an outside possibility that I may find the time or make the time. I never sent that letter. Experience taught me that the longer I stayed silent, the more agitated Bugliosi would become. Despite his protestations, he really wanted to know what I'd write about him. A week later, he called and said that his wife had persuaded him to sit down with me. The interview was on. Bugliosi redo. And so we returned to that sunny day in February 2006 when Bugliosi gave me a stern dressing down at his home in Pasadena, his wife looking on phlegmatically. That was the day he announced himself as my adversary, issued a 45-minute opening statement. 45 minutes? His kitchen, now his courtroom, and he mounted the case that he was a decent guy who'd never hurt anyone in the first instance. He would retaliate in the second instance in self-defense or to get even or to get justice. As if to prove that point, he kept threatening to sue me, making it clear that he wouldn't tolerate any allegation of misconduct. He spoke so quickly and with such a flurry of hyperbole and legalism that I could hardly rebuke one of his points without three more rising up to take its place. Just as my encounter with Roger Smith had, my interview with Bugliosi lasted for some 6 hours, and I came out of it with little more than a list of denials and evasions. But at least Smith had given me wine and pizza. Bugliosi gave me only vitriol. My daughter got suspended for the first time ever today. Oh boy. She got into a fight after their powder puff game. Chick smacked her Chick smacked her face from behind on purpose. Boog defended herself. Look, I agree with defending herself. It's sad. My son's been he's been going through some shit. And it's getting worse. So I'm just like, fuck, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I think I'm gonna talk well, not think. I am going to talk to his father about it. They both ended up suspended. You have to let them the other kid beat you if you don't want to be in trouble. Fuck that. That's how it's always been. I'm so sick of it. Yeah, mine wouldn't have been in trouble with me either. Hell no. Somebody hits you, I'm sorry, hit them back. What are you supposed to do? What if some bitch comes up and grabs your hair? What are you supposed to do? Just sit there and take it so you won't get suspended? I don't think so. So sick of asshole kids. It's been bad for my son. He's been staying home a lot lately, claiming that he's tired or he's sick. I knew something was wrong. She tried to walk away and that's when she buys it. Wow. Before we met, I rehearsed my questions with an actor friend who stepped into Bugliosi's shoes. We developed a plan on how to best deploy my findings and parry his denials. I brought binders full of documents and carefully highlighted passages from Helter Skelter so that I could refresh his memory if he claimed not to recall certain particulars from the case. Yeah, yeah, same. If someone's getting bullied, you step in. Absolutely. If someone hits you, I'm sorry to hit them right back. Especially if they're trying to fight you. What are you gonna do? Stand there like a moron? No. Wow. But right away, Bugliosi threw me off. Ask me your hardest question, he said at the outset. And so I started with everything I had on Terry Melcher, suggesting that Bugliosi had covered up for him and that he'd been much friendlier with Manson than had been revealed. It was the wrong move. I'd intended to build this moment, and now I was leading with it, giving him every reason to take a conscientious no tone. Pulling out a passage from Helter Skelter, I showed Bugliosi what he'd written about Dean Morehouse, the member of the family who, according to the prosecutor, stayed at the house on Cielo Drive for a brief period after Melcher moved out. That's not true, I said. He never lived there after Melcher moved out. He lived there the summer before, off and on with Melcher. I showed him that Dean Morehouse was actually in prison when Bugliosi had said he lived at the Cielo House. I forget what you're telling me, Bugliosi said. The matters of where and how, I forget that kind of stuff. 35 years ago, I've gone after a million things since then. There's a lot of errors in the book. He'd authored it with a co-writer, and he'd been too busy running for district attorney to fact check every last word. This may have gotten past me, he said. I'm more interested in anything you would have that would indicate that I may have misled the jury because I don't believe that happened intentionally. Oh, I fucking do. She took out a chunk of the other girl's hair when she tried to throw. I mean, what I would too. Sorry. Teach your kids better then. Especially, like, don't come for my kid. Mama bears are not, we're not happy to do something to our kids. Like, hell no. I'd storm that school. I already plan on storming that damn school here. I have some shit I gotta do tomorrow, but when I come home. Your daughter was protecting friend. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that both you guys are didn't get in trouble or are good parents. I took out the pages in Bugliosi's own handwriting, notes from his interview with Jane DiCarlo. One of his main witnesses, who said that Terry Melcher had visited Manson 3 times after the murders, contravening what Melcher had said on the stand. This was after the murders. Bugliosi clarified, reading through his own notes. Are you sure about that? You wrote it, I said. He confirmed they were his notes and read them again. You have to know, Tom, that when people are talking to you, they garble things up. My God, they tell a story. But this is not ambiguous. You right, definitely saw Melcher at the ranch. Heard girls say Terry's coming, and you make a point of writing down that it was after the August 6th bust. There's nothing ambiguous about when it was. I'm being 100% candid with you, Bugliosi said. This is new to me. I'm not saying I don't know it at the time. Don't get me wrong, but I absolutely have no impression, no recollection of this at all. He sighed. What's the point? How does it help me with the jury? He sounds like fucking Katie. Oof. Yeah, I would have done the same. That's disgusting. No, no, I'm sorry. I thought it impeached Melcher's testimony, which had been essential to the case. It made him a dirtier witness, I said, because he had a relationship with the murderers after the murders. I showed him the sheriff's interview with the family's Paul Watkins, who remembered seeing Melcher on his knees on acid begging for Manson's forgiveness at the Spawn Ranch, again, after the murders. Didn't it suggest some kind of complicity? Bugliosi leveled an intense stare at me. I was not trying to protect Terry Melcher, he said. Why would I try to deceive the jury on something that the opposition had? I turned over everything to them. But Paul Fitzgerald, the defense attorney, said he never saw any of that. He said he was shocked, I explained. He may have forgotten about them himself, Bugliosi shouted. Look, if I'm going to try and hide them, I throw them away. Why wouldn't I throw them away? Everything that I had was turned over to the defense. Everything. He didn't say that he didn't remember. He said he never saw it. Bugliosi scoffed. Terry would never have associated with these people if he thought they committed these murders, he said. If they did go out there afterward, it wasn't because he was complicit. I'm investigating this case. I'm handling all the witnesses. Things could have gotten past me, but you've got to ask yourself this question. What could I possibly gain? I told him how Stephen Kay, his own co-prosecutor, had reacted to these documents. If Vince was covering this stuff up, what else did he change? Bugliosi gave a brittle laugh. Oh, Jesus, that is so laughable. It's just unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable that I'd cover up that Terry Melcher had gone out to Spawn Ranch after the murders. It wasn't insignificant, and from his reaction, I could tell he knew it. These pages rewrote the narrative of this case. That's why Melcher had threatened to throw them from the rooftop. That's why Bugliosi would sue me if I printed them. Around and around we went, Bugliosi said. When Terry was on the witness stand, did he testify that he never saw Manson after May? Yeah, I said. So that's perjury? So you're saying that Terry lied on the witness stand. Still, he didn't see the point or pretended not to until I read him his own closing argument. He refused to recognize that he'd even used Melcher as part of the motive for the murders. He'd said in his summation, indirectly, Manson was striking back at Terry Melcher personally by ordering a mass murder at Melcher's former residence. Manson obviously knew that Melcher's realization that these murders took place at a residence in which he lived just a couple of months earlier would literally paralyze Melcher with fear. If that were so, why did Melcher go to visit Manson at least 3 times after the murders? All Bugliosi could say about the matter was that must have slipped past me. Wow. To accuse him of conspiracy with Melcher was mind-boggling craziness. What about Reed Whitson, the mysterious figure who'd helped gain the testimony of Sharon Tate's photographer friend? Sharon Hatimi. Did Bugliosi remember Whitson? Oh, possibly, he said. The hours ticked by, and whenever I threw at him, he deflected. The replacement of Susan Atkins' attorney. I showed him the memos. I don't remember any of that stuff, he said. Manson's mysterious move to San Francisco, which violated his parole, even though Bugliosi had wrongly written that he requested and received permission for it, I can't even remember that. How about the warrant for the massive August 16 raid at the Spawn Ranch? Bugliosi had asserted incorrectly that it was missing. I don't know where I got that, he said. This guy is a full-blown liar. Holy hell. I wanted to ask you about Roger and David Smith, I said. It wasn't about to get into the matter of Dr. Jolly West. I knew it'd be met with a blank stare. Who are they? Bugliosi says. I give him my spiel on the paramount significance of Manson's year in San Francisco. That good stuff that you've come up with, he said. Are they mentioned in my book? Barely, I said. He was unfazed. Must have gotten past me. Seems like everything's getting past you, Bugliosi. I just want to save that girl's name. To present our back and forth in granular detail would be excruciating. Reading through the transcript never fails to give me a headache. Suffice it to say that the subject of Terry Melcher always riled him up. Anything and everything else he hardly cared about. If it didn't involve him directly, he had no use for it. He reiterated that he was the fairest prosecutor in the land, and that a hefty $100 million lawsuit awaited me if I suggested otherwise. Wow. Shit, where was I? This is when he fell into his refrain about the man and the mirror. Because he was ethical to an unprecedented degree, he could live with the sight of his own reflection. He didn't understand how I could live with mine. Manson himself had a fondness for the same phrase. I am the man in the mirror, he said. Anything you see in me is in you. I am you, and when you can't admit that, you will be free. What? Like the okay, whatever, Manson. When Bugliosi and I finished, at last, he confessed that he was sometimes obsessive and overreactive. Gail had told him he might have a psychiatric disorder, but he'd done nothing wrong, and he didn't want his admittedly frenetic behavior to color my impressions of his conduct as prosecutor. It was a rare moment of self-awareness, probably the last I ever saw in him. The aftermath of our meeting was a series of alternate coaxing and acrimonious phone calls at all hours of the day and night, conveying a thinly veiled ultimatum. I could drop anything negative about him from my book or fear his wrath. If I published such outrageous, preposterous, and unbelievable lies, the lawsuit was a foregone conclusion. Before the litigation, though, would come the letter. A cri de coeur to my editor at Penguin, with the publisher and president of the company in CC. It would be very, very, very long, Bugliosi warned. He'd take 6, 7, 8 hours to write the first of many drafts. He didn't want to do it. He'd gladly tear it up if I called to apologize. There's nothing to decide here, Tom, he continued, sounding like a used car salesman. It's so damn easy. When I declined for the last time, he said, we should view ourselves as adversaries, and told me to expect the letter. Now that Bugliosi was my sworn adversary, his next move hardly came as a surprise, the smear campaign. First thing next morning, I got a panicked message from Rudy Altobelli, the flamboyant talent manager who'd owned the house in Cielo Drive. We hadn't spoken in 4 years. Please give me a call so I can understand what I'm talking about, the elderly Altobelli said. I still love you. What? Altobelli had gotten a disturbing call from Bugliosi. The first thing he wanted to know about your relationships with young boys. Oh my God. He told me when I called back. As Bugliosi remembered it, Altobelli had told him years ago that I dated 10, 12, 14-year-olds. Altobelli said, adding that he knew it was a lie. I'm gay, and when Altobelli and I became friends, I was dating someone younger. But he was 29, not 12. At that time, Bugliosi was in regular communications with Altobelli, who felt he must have told him I was dating a younger guy. But then and now, Bugliosi knew he meant a young man, not a kid. You're creating something that isn't so, Altobelli told Bugliosi. I'm not going to talk to him anymore, Altobelli said, ever. Bugliosi kept calling for weeks. In just one morning, he left 7 messages on Altobelli's machine. He wanted Altobelli to sign a letter saying I'd lied about Melcher. Altobelli refused. At least now I knew the terrible things about me that Bugliosi had referred to. They were transparently false, as I'd suspected. I could see why he'd twice been sued for defamation. In his long career, Bugliosi had lied under oath. He lied to newspapers, he lied to the police and investigators from his own office. Now that I'd called him a liar, he was pretty willing to lie about me too. His letter arrived at Penguin on July 3rd, 2006. What a fucking asshole, this guy, Bugliosi. His letter arrived at Penguin on July 3rd, 2006. It had taken 5 months to write. It was 34 pages, single-spaced, and as it turned out, it was the first of many such letters. As Bugliosi had promised, copies were delivered to my editor and my publisher so we could take in its distortions, ad hominem attacks, and vigorous self-aggrandizement as a teen, often referring to me as Super Sleuth O'Neill. The misspelling was intentional. I believe he'd done the same to his nemesis, Stephen K. in Helter Skelter. Bugliosi claimed that I'd first wrote him for the sole purpose of discovering titillating factoids about Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski's private sex and drug lives. Easy to disprove, I taped the whole interview. He hinted at his allegations of pedophilia and claimed that I'd accused him of raping Manson. Most of all, he attacked the significance or lack thereof of my findings on Terry Melcher. Can you see why there's a part of me that actually wants O'Neill's dream to come true, he wrote, so that I can have the opportunity to get even with him and destroy his life for more than he's trying to destroy mine? If Penguin moved forward with my book, the publisher would almost assuredly be perceived by the national media as taking a position in defense of Charles Manson, one of the history's most notorious murderers. Oh my God, as if Bugliosi wrote a note to his publisher, Penguin. Oh my God. Bugliosi followed up with letters to all of the family's imprisoned murderers except Manson himself, asking if they'd refute my claims about Melcher's involvement with the group. No one replied. When it became clear that Penguin would stand behind me, Bugliosi sent another letter in 2007 and another one in 2008, inveighing against my project and the irreparable harm it would do to his children, especially if, as I told him I would, I detailed the lawsuits he's faced over the years. This is all about ego and his lies. He doesn't want the lies to come out. I promised my editor that I'd finish my recording by August 1st, 2006. Though I may never have hit that deadline anyway, Bugliosi's letter derailed me. Everyone I knew urged me not to respond on a point-by-point basis. How could I not? I had no intention of replying to him directly, but he'd gotten the best of my inner obsessive, and I spent a while collating all the evidence that refuted his claims. If he did plan on suing me, I'd be ready. In light of his threats, I told him I was now treating everything he said to me as on the record. Back in 1999, he'd given me my first shred of new information on the case, telling me off the record that Roman Polanski had forced Sharon Tate to have sex with 2 other men on tape. Since Bugliosi had detailed the allegation in one of his letters to Penguin, I saw no need to keep it off the record. My fastidious interest distracted me from from that looming dread, perhaps best articulated by Bugliosi himself. Where does it all go, Tom? Where does it all go? I thought his apoplexy confirmed that I was on the right track, but I'd have to find the answers without any help from him. And now there was another unanswerable question. Was it all worth it? All the lonely hours in my car, the endless days poring over transcripts at archives from the edge of Death Valley to small towns in Washington and Nevada, begging and battling for police records, studying obscure medical records and academic papers, filing hundreds of FOIA requests, fielding death threats and promises of litigation. Could I really say it was worth it? Honestly, I didn't know anymore. And this was before I fell into a debt of more than $500,000. Whoa. Digging for bodies in the desert. Yes, he had rattled me, but I tried to shake him off. I had a book to finish, or more realistically, a book to start. Whenever I sat down, opened up my Microsoft Word, and confronted a blinking cursor over a snowy expanse of white, I found it easy to make other plans. Sometimes I'd eke out 10 or 15 pages only to recoil at the holes in my story. My theory that Manson and Dr. West, were linked was tenuous, circumstantial, lying solely on the fact that they walked the corridors of the same clinic. Wouldn't it be more effective to argue that the entire prosecution of Manson was a sham, with Helter Skelter as a cover-up? Bugliosi had said he must have missed Manson's San Francisco chapter, but everyone who knew him said he'd never miss it. I had to know that he concealed more, that witnesses besides Melcher lied, that there was an elaborate scheme to misrepresent the facts. Sure, I told myself, that would be better. I'd go back to the trial transcripts, maybe a few weeks here, a spare weekend there while I wrote. Maybe Dr. Jolly West didn't even belong in the book. Maybe Reed Whitson was just padding. Maybe. I put more effort into the begging for deadline extensions than I did into writing the book, and the world kept concocting reasons for me to keep reporting. Toward the end of 2007, a homicide cop named Paul Dostie claimed to have found forensic evidence of at least 5 bodies buried at the Barker Ranch in Death Valley, where Manson was captured in 1969. 5 bodies? Dostie's trained cadaver dog had sniffed out unidentified remains in the area. As part of a big PR push, Dostie asked me for information supporting the possibility that these could be Manson's long-rumored additional victims. His comrade in arms was Deborah Tate, Sharon's sister, who had become a good friend of mine. Their effort garnered national media coverage. Soon, the Inyo County Sheriff's Office authorized a dig in the desert. I didn't think do that before, though, because we all clearly knew what and who Manson was and what he was about and the shit that he'd done. He'd already been charged with murder. I mean, you would think that would be, something they would look into. I don't know. Skeptics like to ask, what did it matter if the police had taken so many months to bring the family to justice after the murders? Even if they fudged the investigation, they still found him eventually. My answer was always that the family may have used those extra months to continue their murder spree. Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't they look for bodies? At the trial, a ranch hand told police that Manson had bragged about killing 35 people. Bugliosi thought the number may even exceed Manson's estimate. The bodies had been buried or staged to look like suicides. Just because the family had never been prosecuted for these killings didn't mean they didn't happen. If I could put a human face on the death toll, I could say with certainty that we were right to question the official narrative, that the failures of the police, deliberate or not, had a steep cost. Dossie's dig could help me with that, but I already had a lead on a promising unsolved murder from the family's time in Death Valley. In January 2008, motivated by the surge of support from Dossie's work, petitions from Deborah Tate, and my own preliminary reporting, police announced that they were reopening an investigation into this. What death? I'm confused. Okay. This was great news, except when it came to my book. I worried that the renewed attention would compromise my final reporting. Former family members might go back underground after I'd taken months to find out where they had lived. The police might flush out information about the unsolved murder that I'd been on the brink of finding myself. I had to hit the road right away. The writing was on hold yet again. A good part of my trip was a bust. I spent 6 months living out of cheap motels and crashing on friends' couches, racing across the Pacific Northwest to confront family members at their doorsteps, along with a slew of other bold-faced names from Helter Skelter, most of whom had never been found. They were not happy to see me. Very few of them agreed to speak to me at all. Several chased me off the property, gardening shears. Just when I was starting to think that the trip was a total wash, I made my last big break. I had proof, beyond a reasonable doubt. I thought that Manson's family had killed a young man in the desert, and the investigators had covered it up. Wow. What happened to Filippo Terranelli? That must be the person they found. On September 29th, 1969, a 23-year-old named Filippo Tenerelli left his parents' home in brand new Volkswagen Beetle. Tenerelli, a native Italian, had immigrated to Los Angeles with his family in 1959. He had no history of mental illness and no arrests. Tenerelli made the long drive from Culver City to Father Crowley Point, an overlook at Death Valley National Park offering majestic desert vistas. He was there to drive his car over the cliff. Huh? But at the precipice, the beetle got caught on boulders, thwarting his suicide. Frustrated, Terranelli took a pickaxe and a shovel from his trunk and dislodged the car. Then, his fury overpowering his suicidal impulses, he pushed it over the edge. The car fell some 400 feet, coming to rest, wheels up at the bottom of the canyon. He clambered down the steep, rocky terrain, reached into the car and retrieved his belongings, and cut his hands on something inside, leaving blood spatters on the ceiling. No one knew how Terranelli spent the rest of the day or the day following. On the evening of the 30th, he wound up in Bishop, California, 100 miles away. He checked into Unit 3 of the Sportsman Lodge Motel, where he again tried and failed to kill himself, slashing his right wrist. The cut was superficial, and he covered it with a bandage. The next day, October 1st, Tenerelli went to the town's sporting goods store and bought a 20-gauge shotgun, some ammo, a case, and a cleaning kit. Elsewhere, he picked up 2/5 of whiskey, 2 pairs of underwear, a safety razor, and an issue of Playboy. That night, Tenerelli emerged from his motel room when he heard fire engines. The fire department was doing a controlled demolition of a building across the street. The motel owner, Bea Greer, was watching, and she told Tenerelli what was going on. He observed the fire for a while and returned to his room. No one saw him alive again. A maid tried to get into Tenerelli's room the next morning. The door was barricaded from the inside. Around noon, Greer's husband and son pushed it in. There was Tenerelli dead of a gunshot to the face. Police reports concluded that Tenerelli had blocked the door with a chair, put the loaded gun into his mouth, and pulled the trigger with his toe. He was lying on his back on the floor, dressed in jeans with 2 Turkish bath towels under his head, possibly to soak up the blood, and a bed pillow over his head, apparently to muffle the sound. He shaved all of his pubic hair. Some of it was between the pages of the Playboy he bought, but when he checked into the motel, he'd given someone else's name with no ID to be found. He was listed as John Doe. Tenerelli's family filed a missing person report on October 3rd. The next day, 2 hunters spotted his overturned beetle at the bottom of Father Crowley Point and notified the California Highway Patrol. An officer went to look and noticed the blood on the ceiling, suspected foul play. The Tenerelli family learned that their son's abandoned car had been discovered in Death Valley. For 3 weeks, the Bishop Police Department tried to ID their John Doe, while the county sheriff's office looked for the missing Tenerelli. They never connected their parallel investigations, though they had stations next door to each other in Bishop, and the same coroner's office served for them both. On October 30th, the Inyo Register reported that the suicide victim had been positively identified as Filippo Tenerelli of Culver City. Tenerelli had been ID'd by x-rays that matched his patient records at an LA hospital. But the case was soon pushed from the local papers by an even wilder story. In a remote area of Death Valley, a band of nomadic hippies have been arrested for destroying government property and operating auto theft ring. In the coming weeks, they'd be charged with the grisly murders of Sharon Tate and 7 others in Los Angeles. Although it wasn't reported at the time, the Inyo County Sheriff's Office and the California Highway Patrol did briefly consider the possibility that the family was responsible for Tenerelli's death. According to documents I found, investigators doubted that Tenerelli had died by his own hand. They had evidence linking family members to his death. Wow. Their suspicions were obliquely referenced in Los Angeles Times story 2 weeks after the family was charged in the Tate LaBianca murders. The paper reported that law enforcement was looking into potential family murders, including a motorcyclist killed in Bishop. 6 months later, a Rolling Stone story quoted an insider in the Los Angeles DA's office, later identified as Aaron Stovitz, who suggested that the death of Philip Tenerelli might have been the family's doing, but no one had reported what, if any, led investigators to their suspicions. 2009, when I began looking into Tenerelli's death, no one outside of law enforcement had seen documents linking Tenerelli to the family. I started with 3 people: the mayor of Bishop, Frank Crom, who had been on the police force in 1969, Lieutenant Chris Carter, currently of the Bishop Police Department, and Leon Brune, the chief deputy coroner in 69 and still coroner of Inyo County. Carter said the records of Tenerelli's suicide had been purged. Only unsolved homicide records were kept indefinitely. Another cop who'd worked the case said he'd seen the records as recently as 1993. Brune, meanwhile, faxed me the autopsy report and his investigations of the death. His record gave me a much clearer picture of Tenerelli's death, but I found some glaring inconsistencies. The story got even murkier when I tracked down the original Bishop Police Department investigative report, which suggested a far more sinister ending to Tenerelli's life, and perhaps disturbing, a cover-up of that ending by investigators that continued into the present. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I met Brune at his mortuary in Bishop, where I was ushered into a somber reception area and asked to wait. He was with someone at the moment. That someone turned out to be Mayor Frank Crom, who didn't offer me his hand when he emerged from Brune's office. Instead, he followed me back into the room. He intended to sit in on our interview, whether I minded or not. As we took our seats, I got out my tape recorder. Crom said he wouldn't allow our conversation to be recorded. Things didn't get much better from there. Crom answered or amended my questions to Brune, constantly interrupting us. I tried to ask Brune about the sketch of the murder scene I found among the pages he'd faxed. Why weren't the motel room windows included in the sketch? No mention was made of them in the report. How big were they? When the body was discovered, were they open or closed, locked or unlocked? Crom answered for him. No one could have gotten in or out of those windows. They were too small. Barely 10 minutes after we started, Brune shot a nervous glance at Crom and ended the meeting. He had a business to attend to. I'd asked him only half my questions. Crom got me out of the building and followed me to my car, repeating that there was no way the death was anything but a suicide. He suggested I was wasting my time. Everything in his behavior said the opposite. The Sportsman Lodge where Tenerelli died was long gone, but B. Greer, the owner, wasn't. A spry 81-year-old widow with a razor-sharp memory, she flatly contradicted the mayor's statement that her motel windows were too small to climb in or out of. Maybe even 2 people at a time could fit through them, she said. Her son Kermit, who'd helped push in the barricaded door of the Tenerelli's room, was with us that day. He added that his parents had often punished him by locking him in the same unit. He'd always climb out the windows, he said, and he wasn't much smaller than he was now. And he was a big guy. God, there's so many cover-ups. If I didn't believe him, why not go see for myself? The motel hadn't been demolished, he reported. It'd been sold to Alfalfa Ranch just outside of town. They picked up the whole structure and moved it out there a few years before. I drove out to Zach's ranch just to have a look. Just as the Greers had said, the windows were big enough for two people to climb through at the same time. Andy Zach, whose late father had stocked the motel units, told me that all the windows were original. She showed me Unit 3 and let me photograph it. B. Greer remembered that when Tenerelli showed up for the motel, he arrived without a car, she said, which is why he had to show her driver's license. Sorry, why he had to show her a driver's license, something the police and the newspapers had explicitly said he didn't do. Oh my gosh, this book, man. I never would have checked anyone in who came without a car and a license, she said. Without those, she'd have no collateral if there were damages to the property or the customer tried to bolt without paying. She copied the license information into a register, which she later gave to the police. But the cops, Prom among them, which was the mayor, refused to believe that the victim had showed her ID or even that he had a wallet. They kept coming back and trying to talk me out of it, she said. Still angry all these years later, it was a wallet with a driver's license, but they didn't want me to say that. Later, I found a registration form from the Sportsman Lodge. It had Tenerelli's name on it, misspelled. It showed that he paid for 33 days stay beginning on October 1st, 1969. The total was $156, paid in full. B. Greer told me it was exactly the same registration form she would have used in 1969, but a couple of things didn't seem right. The customer always filled out the form. Why would Tenerelli have spelled his own name wrong? Holy shit, you guys, this is insane. There should have been a home address and a driver's license number, but neither was there. Tenerelli's sister confirmed that this wasn't his handwriting. Plus, Tenerelli had a noticeable Italian accent. The man Greer spoke with had no accent at all. Maybe someone had checked in under Tenerelli's name, paying for a month in advance to ensure that the body wouldn't be discovered right away. The police reports contain no photographs of the crime scene. What? They made no mention of any forensic tests, no ballistics, blood splatters, fingerprints, rigor mortis. Officials I spoke to said these would have been routine in an unattended shooting death, even in 1969. There was a lab report showing that Tenerelli's blood alcohol level at the time of his death was 0.3, which doesn't even qualify as under the influence. But he bought those two fifths of whiskey the night before he died. When his body was found, one bottle was sitting empty in the wastebasket. The other was on the shelf, only a third full. If Tenerelli didn't drink all that whiskey, who did? That's a good damn question. Documents made me wonder when exactly Bishop Police and the coroner's office had figured out the identity of the John Doe in their morgue. On October 17th, the radiologist at Washington Hospital in Culver City examined x-rays of John Doe sent to her by the Inyo County coroner. They were similar or identical, she wrote, to those of a patient who'd been operated on at the hospital after a motorcycle accident in 1964. Tenerelli. The Inyo coroner had been notified of the match within 24 hours, so they'd identified their Jane Doe as Tenerelli no later than October 18th. And yet the chief of police had told the Inyo Register that the identification came 10 days later on October 28th. How are they able to get away with all these lies? Like, this is the law. The Inyo County Sheriff's Office was investigating the case from the other side. They found Tenerelli's total beetle in the desert, and they wanted to know where he'd gone. Documents from their investigation suggested my back's stuck in here. That the coroner's office withheld information from them. When an Inyo detective asked about Bishop's John Doe on October 28th, Brune didn't tell him they'd identified the victim nearly two weeks earlier. Why, though? Oh my God, there's so many corrupts, so many lies, so many people involved. Had Brune deliberately kept this from the sheriff? I would say, yeah. Why wasn't Tenerelli's identification shared with the other agencies or his own family sooner? I could never ask Brune. Neither he nor Crome spoke to me again. Rupert Denton, the surgeon who conducted Tenerelli's autopsy, told me he'd never believed the case was a suicide. He only called it that under pressure from the coroner's office. Looking over his own report, Denton said, see where I wrote this man seems to be a suicide? I wasn't happy with this. That's what I wrote seems. He shook his head. there were bum things going on here. It appeared to him now, as it probably did then, that Tenerelli had been in a fight or dragged before he was shot. In those days, he said a lot of questionable deaths were signed off as suicides. It was too expensive to investigate. People didn't want to be involved. That is just disgusting. On the other side, the sheriffs and the California Highway Patrol were looking into the abandoned Volkswagen with blood on its interior. A report filed by one of the sheriff's deputies on October 5th said, from indications at scene, the vehicle has not been at the location for more than 2 days. If that were true, Tenerelli couldn't have dumped his car. His body had been found 3 days earlier, October 2nd, and the estimated time of death was between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m. on October 1st. What the fuck? This is so crazy. And yet all the newspapers working on information from the police reported that Tenerelli had ditched his car there after a failed suicide attempt. Why did police concoct this story when they knew it couldn't be true? There were clues among the evidence recovered from the scene near the car. Cops found a pickaxe and a shovel with broken handles, as well as a beer and soda bottles, all covered in what was thought to be Tenerelli's blood. Then there was a cache of unused shotgun shells, a loaf of French bread, and a package of lunch meat, maps, miscellaneous papers, and several documents indicating that Tenerelli might not have been alone in the car. A meal and laundry sheet from Brentwood Hospital, where he had neither worked nor been a patient, and a Santa Monica bus schedule, which he wouldn't have needed because he owned a car and a motorcycle. The two hunters who chanced upon Tenerelli's car had observed someone coming up from the wreck as they climbed down to it, sheriff's report said. There was far more blood in and around the vehicle than the papers had reported. Blood on the fender and bumper, inside the driver's side door and under the dash, palm prints and dried blood, scratch marks going down the dried blood. A lot of blood from just one man who had no noticeable wounds when he arrived at Bishop. B. Greer told the police that when she talked to Tenerelli, he seemed quite natural and told her that he was here to look the area over and possibly find a job. If the coroner's time of death was correct, Tenerelli had shaved his pubes, downed a bottle and half a whiskey, and shot himself within 2 hours after that conversation. Meanwhile, memos from the California Highway Patrol suggested suspects for the murder. The group of hippie car thieves they'd recently taken into custody in Bishop. Around the 1st of October, a highway patrolman had stopped a late model blue Volkswagen. Tenerelli drove a 69 blue Volkswagen, and October 1st was a day before his body was found. Wow. The patrolman questioned the driver, who, like his 2 male passengers, was a hippie type. Later, investigators showed the patrolman a photograph of the family, including Manson, Steve Grogan, and Danny DiCarlo. He was sure that DiCarlo was the driver of the fucking car. Imagine that. The report continued. Even though Tenerelli was supposed to be a definite suicide, perhaps Bishop PD would be interested, especially if we can place DiCarlo in Bishop after 9/29/69 and prior to or on 10/1/69. I checked, and DiCarlo was in Death Valley on exactly the dates in question. Holy shit. But there was no indication that the Highway Patrol had shared their findings with the Bishop Police Department. Records from the Inyo District Attorney contain a morgue photograph of Tenerelli's face with a note attached. Days wanted to find another photo of Tenerelli to show to Kitty, oh my god, the family's Kitty, that Kitty girl, who'd run away from Death Valley before her friends were caught, and who briefly cooperated with investigators. If she told detectives anything about Tenerelli, we'll probably never know. There were no other documents linking the two, and she refused to speak to me when I knocked on her door in 2008. Neither of the officers who investigated Tenerelli's abandoned Volkswagen believed he committed suicide. One of them, the California Highway Patrol's Doug Manning, called the official story a bunch of malarkey. The other, Inyo Sheriff's Deputy Dennis Cox, called it bullshit. Then how did they get away with it? Cox was sure the car was dumped in Death Valley after Tenerelli's death in Bishop. He'd been to Father Crowley Point the day before, and the hunters discovered the beetle, and it wasn't there. After the Manson family was arrested for their auto theft ring, one of the girls told investigators that she was involved with Tenerelli, and that he'd been with the family in Death Valley before his death. But Cox couldn't remember who said that. When police in Death Valley finally captured the family, They've been tracking the group's car thefts and burglaries since September 29th at the latest. They might not have known yet that their suspects were killers, but they did know that they've been stealing vehicles all over Inyo County with a special predilection of Volkswagen Beetles, which they like to convert into dune buggies for use in the rugged desert terrain. One last thing bothered me. The pubic hair. If, as police reports stated, Tenerelli had shaved his pubes just before killing himself, and a few strands had been found between the pages of a Playboy magazine, what happened to the rest? That's a good damn question. Very good question indeed. The family's Bill Vance had a magic vest he'd like to wear that was made of pubic hair. What the? A report from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. The LASO report never said where the pubic hair came from, and how could it, really? But I found it was relevant that Vance, an associate of Manson from prison, was arrested for stealing a gun from a car in Death Valley on October 5th, 1969, the day Tenerelli's car was pulled from the nearby ravine. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much shit is in here. I'm gonna look up that girl that Bugliosi beat the shit out of. I'm gonna see if there's anything. What's her name? Last name's Cardwell. Sorry, I'm just looking for her name. I can't find it now. Virginia Cardwell. Okay, let me see if there's a Virginia. Why do I know that name? It's weird. I'm gonna have to check on the check on the net because I don't see it. I was thinking maybe it might be on YouTube, but it's not. Okay. There's some stuff in here. Hold on. What is this? Cease to exist, part 2, back to the top of the slide. What is this? I just want to see where it says anything about his affair with Virginia, like what he did to that woman, if she's even still alive. Wow. Actress is among 5 slain. Right there. Well, let's film there. That's at Spawn Ranch. Sorry, I'm trying to find. What was that? Ruth Ann Smith. And listen to this. It was a matter of public record, though little known, that Bugliosi had actually been indicted in 1974 for perjury in connection with the Manson case, accused of leaking information to a reporter, then lying about it under oath. But as chronicled in K.S. O'Neill, uncovered serious evidence of possible misconduct by Bugliosi at trial, suborned perjury, witness tampering, and possibly even coached testimony. If proven, any of these lapses could have caused a mistrial, endangering the possibility of jailing any of the Manson family members for their crimes. I think there should have been a mistrial, and they should have redone it and got the actual truth out, but that didn't happen, did it? What the fuck is that? Was that Susan? Yeah. That was what I was just reading, right? What should inform you? This is the one I just read. So here's the letter. It says, this is March 24th, 1969. Gentlemen, I wish to inform you that I am a former employee of your company. At the time, I was employed as a retail rootman from January 1965 to June 1965. The company was owned by Arden Farms. Recently, my wife and I have been receiving harassing phone calls from an anonymous male caller stating that he used to be a customer on my route back in 1965. This is the milkman. Since we have an unlisted phone, it is quite obvious that he received our phone number from your office, and should we continue to receive any further such calls, we will be obligated to turn this matter over to our attorney. We hold your company responsible for divulging this information without our consent. Sincerely, Mr. and Mrs. Herbert Weisel. That's the milkman. It says right here, 1969 letter of complaint from Los Angeles milkman Herbert Weisel, but a crazed stalker harassing him with phone calls. Incredibly, the stalker appeared to be Manson's prosecutor, Vincent Bugliosi. All right, so we're getting close. 1969 Los Angeles District Attorney's Office memo confirming Vincent Bugliosi had used DA resources to stalk his former milkman. Holy shit. It wasn't until some time during the Manson trial that I happened to see Mr. Bugliosi on TV. I called in my wife to show her the guy who had been harassing us, and it was only then that we discovered that he was a deputy district attorney. Wow. Oh, here it is, the Virginia Cardwell. Right, Nun? What the, like, seriously, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? Scary that he got to be prosecutor and had done all that illegal shit. Yeah. I'm just like overwhelmed, flabbergasted, in awe about all this shit. I want to get to the Virginia part. I want to know if she's still alive. Shoot, that wasn't it. Yes, it was it. Wait, what happened? There we go. I'm not showing you this, am I? Fuck, sorry. Allegations against Bugliosi. Sorry, this is what I meant to, what I was trying to show you guys. My bad. I later knew how crazy Bugliosi was, said O'Neill. That's okay, that's the author. I mean, everybody was kind of unanimous in the DA's office said, oh yeah, Vince had screws loose. This was no exaggeration. So this is a letter I just read about the milkman. Bugliosi, it seemed, was convinced Herbert Weisel had been the biological father of his son. According to the milkman's wife disposition, said that Tom O'Neill and Gail Bugliosi said to the milkman's wife, Miss Weisel, my husband is ill, mentally ill. We know your husband's not the father. And she said, well, if you're not leaving him or you're not getting help yourself, and I have no pity for you, something like that. And she shut the door in her face. And then here's the office memo. Allegations against Bugliosi. So this was in the paper, May 2nd, 1976, detailing even worse allegations about Bugliosi. I never used my office to investigate this person, and there's no evidence of that. I asked my office to get a phone number for this person. I never had my office investigating this thing. It was a private matter, and being a private matter, why should it be kept in the paper? Van de Kamp and Denny dispute Bugliosi's contention that he merely obtained a phone number through his office. No, he didn't. He definitely got it from the company, I think. Bugliosi's campaign director, Harvey Englander, branded the rebirth of the issue a form of cheap politics and said it was a sign that the Van de Kamp campaign was by the Los Angeles County Grand Jury in 1974 for allegedly lying under oath and denying he gave Manson case transcript to Times reporter Bill Farr. But the charges were dismissed when Farr refused to testify. Well, I can't imagine why. Bugliosi had been hurt both publicly and privately. The Weisel and Cardell charges sometimes brings his wife Gail to tears. Why? It's true. His pat response. Okay, that's all about them. In 1973, a Santa Monica woman named Virginia Cardwell reported to police that she had been beaten by her married lover, Vincent Bugliosi. She said he had threatened to kill her if the newly pregnant Cardwell didn't abort their love child. Refusing, Cardwell was physically attacked by Bugliosi, battered so badly she filed a police report. He beat the hell out of his mistress, said Tom O'Neill, and even worse this time, not only lied to the media about it, but he lied to the police about what it really happened. Assault and battery. Whoa. So at 1900 hours, Officer Ram was detailed at 220 Ocean Park Boulevard. Regarding an assault and battery, upon arrival, contacted the victim, Virginia Cardwell, who related the following. She stated that at approximately 1600 on this date, she was in the bedroom of her apartment when her boyfriend, Vincent T. Bugliosi, the former assistant district attorney of Los Angeles County, entered her apartment through the rear door. He came into the bedroom and began to beat her. She stated that he threw her onto the bed, jumped on top of her, and began pulling her hair and choking her. He then struck her in the face several times with his fist, then threw her to the floor, pulling her off of the floor by her hair. He then grabbed her throat and choked her approximately 3 more times. What a fucker. All because she would not get an abortion. So he just beat the baby out of her is what he fucking did. As with the milkman, Bugliosi quickly struck a settlement and the criminal complaint dissipated, but not before wrecking his candidacy for statewide office. Cardwell said O'Neill believes she miscarried during the beating. He should have went to fucking prison. I can't believe this shit. Yeah, exactly. He basically was gonna divorce his wife for having a child with the milkman, and yet his son today is his father's biggest supporter, and I guess doesn't care that his dad didn't believe he was. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess he doesn't care. He really just exactly. And he wasn't, that's the thing. It wasn't she didn't like that's a saying back then, like I was saying earlier, the milkman thing, you know, oh, your father's banging your mother's banging the milkman, you're the milkman's kid or whatever. And he truly believed that. Yeah, he was the one having the affair and beat the shit out of his mistress because she wouldn't have an abortion, and she lost the baby because of this piece of shit. They are all messed up in that whole family, from Bugosi to the mother to his son, to cover him for. It's fucking disgusting. It really, 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 really is. I want to reach out to Virginia Caldwell, but I don't know if she's alive or not. Wow, this is, yeah, this is making me mad. All right, I should go. We got that live at what, 9:30? So about an hour away. I'm gonna quickly grab something to snack on and then get ready for that. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow night reading some more again. I'm almost done. Like really, really, really almost done. I don't have much left. Only have this much. A little bit. It's probably oh no, 2 more lives. Yeah, I think I'm done actually. There's really not. There's some notes I guess I could read, but other than that, it's like done. Can you let her in, buddy? My cat's meowing to get in the door. I put it on my community tab at Tistic Shell for rabbits there. I'll put it in here too, though. There, I think I did it. Yeah, there we go. All right, you guys have a great night. I'll be back in an hour on Robin's channel. So come please watch. I think it'll be good. You guys have a great night. And oh God, is it bad? Please tell me stop. It shouldn't be bad because I didn't do anything and neither did anyone else. Please don't be bad. I don't want to fight. I don't like fighting with people. Like at all. And I'm not fighting with anybody, and I don't want to fight with anybody. So I'll go look. I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna go look. You guys have a great night. Bye.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue